Alright, Astro subscribers, welcome back to another video of the House Lords series. And if you're new to this, what is the Vedic House Lord system? It's basically, if you look at the dispositor of a particular house, so let's say the ruling planet of a house in a particular ascendant, a particular birth chart. Let's say you're a Cancer ascendant, you have 10th Lord Mars, and Mars is in the 8th house. That means your 10th Lord's in the 8th house. And the 10th house is going to take on aspects of the 8th house. You can look at this stuff as a light bulb. So basically what's happening is there is a light bulb that is the house, and it has a particular tint. Let's say that's the number of the house or the sign that it's in. And then the tinted light bulb has a power source, and the power source is the position of the house's ruler. So in that situation that I said, where you have a Cancer ascendant, Aries is the 10th house, Aries is ruled by Mars, and Mars is the 8th house in Aquarius in this chart, the light bulb of the 10th house is going to be lit up by Mars in the 8th house. That's its power bank. That's where it's getting the source of its energy from. So from this, you can see not just where the energy and the character of the particular house comes from, but also where the results of that house come from, and it gives you another method of connecting houses to each other. So if you want to activate the 10th house, you realize that you can do that from the 8th house. You don't have to wait for a transit to go over the 10th house. You can look at a transit going over the 8th house and activate it that way, if you were so inclined. So, today we're doing the 10th Lord through houses, and what does it mean when 10th Lord is in these different houses? So, you have to understand that the 10th Lord is going to be naturally related to Saturn, and is going to, because Saturn rules the 10th house, and it's going to have negative qualities in the signs that Saturn does not play well with, or the houses that Saturn does not play well with. So with that being said, the first house, since Saturn is debilitated in Aries, as I covered in my exaltation and debilitation series, you shouldn't expect good results with the 10th Lord in the first house. It tends to have a lot of the same problems as Saturn in Aries, which is that basically a person becomes kind of a covert narcissist because Saturn is ruling the sun's exaltation point, or Saturn is influencing the sun's exaltation point. And what happens here is that Saturn, which is basically a worker, a necessary but humble part of the environment, tries to become a tyrant. And what happens is these people are constantly always trying to work on their self-image, and because of that they do not serve others and become kind of a narcissist in many ways, which is to say a pretty box with not much in it. Now, there are remedies to this. I don't want to paint a purely negative picture of more debilitated placements, and those remedies are, you can find them online. If you have this disposition, and with the right planets, it can be bad, and you don't want to live that way. If you're conscious of it, you can change. This is the thing. Astrology is not determinism. It's a framework for magic. So you can modify your own experiences should you choose to. But and the remedy for having 10th Lord in the first house would be to embrace the qualities and meditate on the qualities of the 7th house and the relationship between Saturn and Sun, and to realize that through service to others, that's actually how you embrace your best self. Now, this being said, moving on to 10th Lord in the 2nd house. And what happens here is these people have a tendency to work for money, and always sort of are trying to find the best way to make more and more money, and not just money, because the 2nd house is also material sensation. So they're really interested in the nature of material sensation, and they tend to grow and develop in that over time. So all in all, this is a pretty good placement from a purely materialistic perspective. Second lord, or 10th lord in the third house. 10th lord in the third house has many of the qualities of Virgo and many of the qualities of Saturn and Gemini, in that these people are slow to speak, detailed in their speech. They're sort of late bloomers creatively. They tend to have a lot of ideas but have trouble acting on them until later in their lives. And but with all things Saturn, it comes in waves of approximately 30 years, and these people do tend to sort of snowball throughout their lives and become more and more creatively, artistically powerful. And with the right placements, these people can ultimately monetize their writing, monetize their creativity, and become very efficient in that way. But it does take them a while to get that snowball rolling. 10th lord in the fourth house. So with all oppositions, this can be where the house lord is in the sign opposing the house itself, because 10th lord opposes the fourth house. Generally, this isn't the best placement in the world because it's sort of contradictory, but for Saturn, because Saturn is exalted in the 7th position from itself, this actually makes a very pure person who works for others, who basically is called toward serving others in the highest possible spiritual way. So this is actually a very good placement. It kind of has the 10th house of a Libra ascendant vibe, in that the 10th house of a Libra ascendant is Cancer, and these people work for those who they love. And so this is actually a very good placement. 10th lord in the 5th house has some of the qualities of 10th lord in the 1st house, but the way to, in that these people can work towards aggrandizing themselves and being very self-centered. However, this can also be positive in the way of being a manager, being an educator, or being a politician. So it's not that these people are always going to be very, very self-centered and try to put on all these costumes. And Leo is more of a sign of service to others than Aries is. Aries is purely about serving the self, whereas Leo is, yes, it's about serving the self and achieving a high status, but the fact of the matter is you can't achieve a high status if people don't like you. So, and Leo recognizes that much more than Aries does as a sign. So these people have a much better shot of serving others and not being narcissistic, which is what the 10th house is in its highest state when it's serving others, not itself. So this can be an optimistic placement if it's played right, let's say. 10th lord in the 6th house. In many ways, this is a very high form of the 10th house, or very high lord of the 10th house. So these people have an eye for detail. They're meticulous in their service of others, and all in all, this is just a very disciplined, good placement with a high intelligence, and uses that intelligence humbly to serve others. So this is a very good placement. 10th lord in the 7th house. This is also a pretty good placement. I think this, in many ways, this is such a other-centric placement that it can be very hard to know what to do to serve others the best, but that's actually a pretty good problem to have in many ways. I would say the main downsides of this placement are scatteredness and difficulty focusing. I think the best way to view this placement is extreme rewards after extreme delays. So these people might face extreme opposition in their lives, but ultimately will have a very enviable career path and enviable life. 10th lord in the 8th house. So this is an interesting one. This is a placement where people feel compelled to sort of serve others by examining the darkness of the human mind, the darkness of the psyche, exploring unknown areas in a more concrete sense. This is also a very good placement for investments, for loans, for getting loans, research grants, that kind of thing. So these people are best when they are exploring things which scare other people, when they are trying to learn something new to be of service to others. So I would say with this placement, it's also kind of a late bloomer, because 8th house is one of these houses that comes online very late because it's ruled by Pluto partially, and Pluto is the slowest planet that influences us in any significant way. So, and Saturn, of course, is very slow moving as well. These people's lives do tend to pick up in their middle ages, which is when Pluto becomes dominant in a person's life. But in order for that to happen, these people do have to put in the work to research. So if you have this placement, you should aim for late success and perhaps sudden as well. But it's, you know what they say, an overnight success takes 20 years of hard work, and that hard work for these people is going to be flipping over every stone to try to find out what is true. 10th Lord in the 9th house. Okay, this is an interesting one as well. It's a very scattered placement. It's a very dissociated placement. These people do tend to get lost in information so much that they can lose focus of reality. So if you have this placement, the best thing to do is to focus on learning, but try to find some way to ground yourself and make ends meet. So maybe you're calling on your meditation on the 2nd house or 6th house or the lords of those houses, but you have to find some way to connect yourself back to the earth while you wait for the information that you're gathering from the world to be of service to others, to be of any use economically. So these people are very creative, but they have a hard time staying focused. So this is a difficult placement with potential for good payoff. 10th Lord in the 10th house is a placement which is kind of self-explanatory, but basically if you want to understand this placement very, very well, just look at my Capricorn Ascendant video, because these people are basically going to be going through the motions of Saturn and a Capricorn Ascendant in a very, very pure way. So yeah, just read the chart from the 10th house and you will understand everything there is to know about this placement. 10th Lord in the 11th house is a sort of materialistic placement again. It's a placement that wants to make the processes that you go through on a daily and weekly basis much more efficient. It's about editing your own life to where it's extremely efficient and disciplined. So depending on what planet is here and what sign it's in, the constant of 10th Lord in the 11th house is that you're going to want to hone and sharpen your routines and make them more and more efficient. And so in that way, it's pretty good. And then finally, 10th Lord in the 12th house is a placement which has a high potential for creativity. It has a high potential for psychic experiences and sort of dreamlike activity, but let me put it like this: it's more concrete and has more potential for articulation and fame than other sort of 12th Lord placements. Because if you've noticed in these videos, there's a theme with 12th Lord placements where they become sort of detached from material reality and have a hard time existing in this world. But with this placement, what I see it as is like sort of a Helena Blavatsky type person, like a new age writer, or somebody who has these psychic or dreamlike experiences and then is actually able to produce something of value with them. But still, this is a very seeker placement. It is a very dreamer placement. And, you know, as with all 12th or lords in 12th houses sort of situation, you're going to be looking at a person who is very detached from material reality and is completely caught up in the realm of dreams and ideas and forms and whatnot. So yeah, that was my video for 10th Lord through houses. And if you like this video, definitely subscribe and I'll be making more. So till then.